All right, so now we're going to check on the brass thrust block. This is kind of a follow-up video. If you remember my other video where I installed it, I decided to run it for a little while. Well, things have kind of came up in it. Kind of running it a little longer than I originally had anticipated. I was going to run it for about 100 to maybe 500 miles. Probably ran it closer to 1,000 now. Probably about 4 off-road trips, some highway, a lot of around town, but pretty good gauge of how this thing is going to do. I've already drained the fluid. As you could see, a little bit of a sheen in there, but nothing really brass colored. So pretty optimistic there. So I'm going to go ahead and crack this cover and we'll take a look at it. All right, so let's get this thing cracked open. I went ahead and I took out most of the bolts. That way you don't have to see me wrenching. All right, let's get that too. All right. Let's see, we're looking pretty good. Let me get this thing in neutral and we could take a look at the other side. And see how this thing's doing. All right, now we're looking at the other side. And I think we're looking pretty good. Not really seeing very much wear. Maybe a very, very tiny bit on the ends here, right in there. I don't know if you can necessarily see that. Let me see if I can zoom in. Get that to focus a little. Yeah, so it looks like we have a very, very minor amount there. Right at the very end, if you can see. Let me see if I can get my finger. Right at that corner there on the top side. Very, very minor though. So that's a little tough to say. Do we consider that good, or should I keep running this thing before I start making them? I think I might run another maybe 1,000 or so miles. I am getting a little bit of glitter. Getting some bronze flake in there. I don't know if you could see it or not. Zoom back out. Yeah, there is some bronze flaking going on. So it's definitely wearing. Very similar to the aluminum. So, I guess that's something I have to think about, is what is causing the wear. Is it just the nature of the design, or is there a issue with maybe the spider gears? I do have another carrier, another e-locker. It did finally come. So, I mean, I could essentially scrap this whole thing and just rebuild it with a new e-locker. I am still considering that, but I was wanting to kind of run this to give another option. But if there's an issue with older e-lockers, I guess the bronze thrust block will eventually just wear out, just maybe a little slower than the aluminum. So all it's really doing is buying you more time while you, wait for an e-locker if they end up being on back order. So the bronze thrust block may be something that's just a temporary solution to essentially replace the whole thing that may have been redesigned. Not really sure on that yet. I know there was an updated part number for the e-locker, so maybe there is something internally that causes this thrust block to wear, but it's probably something very minute that I'm just not seeing. Obviously not something jumping out at me because, looking at them, they look the exact same. But if I pull out a micrometer, there might be some minute difference with the spider gears or the pin or, something like that. I'll have to double check when I look at that e-locker again or have them side by side. But I think for now, I'm going to go ahead and keep running this for at least 1,000 or 2 miles before I do anything as far as, manufacturing them for sale. I want to make sure this is something that works for the long term, and if not, then it may be something that I have to put some type of disclaimer of that, hey, this is just to hold you over until you replace the carrier with some upgraded one, or you're going to have to monitor this thrust block and just make sure it doesn't wear. All right, well, I figured I'd do a quick little video here just to kind of show you me cracking this thing open, because I've had it in for a little while and I've kind of not really talked about it since, mainly because I haven't had a chance to open this thing up and get a good look at it until now. But yeah, if anybody's got some thoughts or anything like that on what they think may be causing these things to wear, I'm all ears to look into it. I haven't looked super into it. I just know that this thing seems to move just ever so slightly, and it seems to clank off the spider gears, and that's pretty much all I see. I don't really know how to make it any tighter without really messing it up. I did kind of think of maybe a design that came out into here and kind of, was on the housing rather than the gears, so that when you shift and it basically wants to rock back and forth, it would just basically hold on to the carrier housing rather than the gears. but that would take a little bit more engineering, and I'd have to have this thing out and really look at how it holds, make sure you can install it and things like that, and be able to get the pin in there, have the pin retain, because that has to hold the axles from coming in too far and letting the C-clamps or the C-clips fall off. So there's a little bit more involved to that than, this thing, which is essentially just a replication of the aluminum dimensions, but in brass. But if anybody has any other ideas, I'm definitely open. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and close this up, and see you guys on the next one.